What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Religiously Incorrect Podcast. I am Pastor Todd, and we have a guest co-host, but not really a guest co-host. I'm going to say a resident contributor on Religiously Incorrect. Y'all give it up for Mo. Give it up for Mo, everybody. Nobody's watching right now, but when you come on, give it up for Mo. How you doing today? What's happening with you?
What's going on? It's nice to be back.
Is it good to be back?
It's good to be back.
You about to say how long it's been since you've been back?
It's been about 3 years, I feel like, at this point.
Come on now.
It's been a minute.
You were here before the pandemic, after the pandemic.
I was here like 3 months ago.
Big shot, big spread from 3 years. Lord have mercy.
Too long.
Well, welcome, Mo. Pastor Jeff is still fulfilling some pastoral duties. And we're really grateful that he was just installed yesterday as the pastor of Second Baptist Church in Steubenville. And we had a phenomenal time. So let me get his portion out the way. Religiously Incorrect Podcast is brought to you by the African American Community Fund, established in 2020. The Foundation for Appalachian Ohio supports Black-led and Black-serving organizations throughout 32 counties of Appalachia, Ohio. They're elevating the quality of life and addressing disparities in African American communities. You can connect with them at appalachianohio.org/AACF or give them a call at 740-753-1111. You can always check our page for more information about the African American Community Fund. Well, it's a beautiful day today, wonderful time in worship. I got a chance to fry a little fish, take a little nap. I even cut my grass. And now, but the best part of my Sunday night is Sunday night service. Mo, there's a lot going on in the world.
There is.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of tension, a lot of conflict, a lot of debate. And one of the biggest issues that has been hitting our country has been protests on college campuses. So we've talked about the conflict in Israel and Gaza,
right?
In Israel, and between the Palestinians and the Israel, and I was about to say the Israelites, like the Jewish, the Israelites. But now it's coming to a head. This past 2 weeks or so,
right,
we're seeing like 60s and 70s level campus protests.
Right.
I mean, May 4th. Which is, you have a special date we're going to talk about after the break. May 4th is the anniversary of, if I'm not mistaken, y'all who remember, of the Kent State shooting. When the 4 students were shot and killed in Kent State by the National Guard.
Right.
And now around the country, Columbia University in New York City, all the campuses actually, but they're having a big police response. I've seen it down in Georgia at Emory University. I've seen it at University of Southern California, USC. I thought they were protesting OJ's death. Turns out they were protesting Gaza. But all over the country, even at Ohio State,
right, we're
starting to see it again in places like Kent. There are protests going on. What's your take on this and what we're seeing with the students?
I think it's crazy, really.
Like crazy, what is crazy?
Just the protesting, the arrest. They said there was an article as of April 28th, there was about 900 people arrested.
Wow.
That's crazy. I mean, and there's another protest that's causing some fighting on the campuses. So I kind of get it. So it's just a lot.
And students are known, especially certain campuses are known for being like, advocacy campuses. Like one of the things I was listening to on a podcast was how at places like Columbia, Stanford, your real liberal arts colleges on the coast, they're known for protests and advocacy and activism and having an open freedom of speech, right? And they feel like the university is betraying them by not giving them the space to protest as they see fit. However, the protests have included a lot of anti-Semitic rhetoric.
Yeah.
I'm talking death to Israel.
Yes,
they want Israel wiped off the face of the map. Zionists should die. There was one student at Columbia, I believe, who was arrested and suspended from the school because he got on a microphone in front of a rally and said Zionists should die. meaning Jews who are very pro-Israel.
Right.
And to me, that is troublesome, even within the freedom of speech, because we cannot incite violence, nor, we're not publicly calling for the death and harm of other people.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. I mean, to publicly say that in front of a whole protest, that's going to automatically cause violence, because the people who don't agree with that, they're going to be upset.
And then you're going to have backlash.
That's not okay. So that is completely unacceptable. Yeah, you should have your freedom of speech, but just there's certain things with limitation.
Right. But there are people blocking people from moving around campus, harassing Jewish students. And I wish that we could find ways to protest
peacefully.
Not just peacefully, but very strongly and very passionately, without demonizing people who are just within the purview of the protest. Right. So if I'm anti-Israel's actions against Gaza, okay, if I'm anti-Israel's actions against Gaza, that should not translate to anti-Jewish students on my campus.
Right.
But, and here's the other thing. I want you to kind of maybe feel me out on this, that you could help me understand. There seems to be a lot within these protests of holding anybody who is adjacent or any way connected to the people who are actually doing what you don't like. If you are of the same lineage or ethnicity, if you have any investments or might be connected in any business fashion, like for instance, they want all the colleges to divest from any Israeli businesses and Israeli investments, which is kind of sort of difficult in a practical way, because these are usually very complicated things where they have these huge portfolios.
You can't just be like, we're done here.
Yeah. In a way, but not to say that you couldn't, but it's almost like, where do you stop the line? So how do you feel about going after everybody who is in any way connected to the people doing something you don't like?
I don't think it's really necessary.
You sure?
To an extent.
Because it feels like it's effective.
I mean, it is. It is. So I guess if I was to put myself in that position, then I would want them to go after everybody who's connected in some capacity in that relationship, whatever it may take, because that would show we're standing together, we're strong. Right. This is what we want. So I do get it. But
I just feel like it can be troublesome. I guess it's my problem is that it can create trouble
absolutely.
more than in some ways putting a bad face on a good cause. Like the cause was good until you went to these extremes.
But sometimes you have to go to extremes to get what you want.
Okay, so let's talk about one of those extremes. One of the major ways of protest these days is blocking highways. And that's happened. Blocking major streets, blocking major highways, literally making human blockades. People can't go to work.
Right.
Emergency vehicles can't get through. People could have their jobs at stake. Okay. So I'm anti-Israeli army actions, Israeli government actions in Gaza. Do I have a right to prevent a mother in labor from getting to the hospital? A worker from getting to their job because I want to be heard?
Yes.
So
if I'm standing for something and I'm protesting and I need to go to whatever extreme to be heard, yes.
Even if it causes harm to others?
It's unfortunate, but yes.
So I want to trace this trail of logic, and I'd really love for y'all, if you're watching this, to tune in on what Mo is saying, because she's speaking for the, you're officially speaking for the protest side now.
No, I'm not doing that, but
okay.
I just know if I put myself in that position,
all right.
If I protest, I will go to any length.
All right. I'm in the car with my wife. My wife needs to get to the hospital. Protesters are in my way. I'm running y'all down to save my wife's life.
Do what you got to do.
Is that so? You feel like, but does that not create a cycle of carnage?
What is a quote? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So I'm standing for it. If you're not willing to die for it,
is there a more reasonable way to stand than to put other people in? And let me say it like this, to be honest. Sometimes we be protesting for people that ain't thinking about us. Right. So especially like black people, I'm like, man, the Palestinians ain't thinking about us. They ain't come over here for Black Lives Matter.
Right.
So what I'm saying, but that's what these college students are doing. And one thing I'll say, and I'm the old man now. I'm the old guy now. it's easy to live in this fantasy world of doing whatever it takes, so to speak, to get your point across when you're living in a dorm.
Right.
You know, you have not yet fully had to live with the consequences of life nor the consequences of your actions. And you don't have to attend the funerals of the people or that house that burned down because the fire truck couldn't get through, or that person who was working and lost their job and can't feed their children because you had a point to make. How is causing harm to others? I mean, real harm. We're not talking about civil rights movement where they would literally march up the sidewalk or get a parade permit to go make a point at a designated, rally at the State House. We're talking about people saying, I'm going to cross a major thing and whatever happens, happens because I'm mad at the government halfway across the world.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, because what they're protesting for and going to that extreme for that, I'm not going to agree with that. But if I was to put myself in a position where I'm protesting something that I'm passionate about, I would go to those extremes. Okay,
so let me say this. Let's say you're the anti-Israel, and I'm not saying anti-Israel, but anti-Israel actions protester. You're protesting their cruel and inhumane treatment that you perceive to be in Gaza. Scott asked a question. If you'll do anything to stand against the devil or who you perceive to be the devil, what makes you different from him? If you're protesting someone causing harm to another, and your manner of protest is causing harm to another, what makes you any different from what they're doing? If people suffer because of you, while you're protesting people who are suffering because of someone you're against, how does that make you any different?
When you put it that way, it's not really much of a difference.
Thank you, Scott.
But I would still do it.
You would still do it?
Yes.
What if somebody literally yelled out their car, if I don't get to my job, I'll get fired. Could you please let me through?
I'm going to pray for you.
You'll pray for him?
I'm going to pray for you.
Man, listen.
Unemployment.
I'll have to say that as an activist and an advocate myself who has actually planned rallies, one of my principles has been not to unduly afflict the innocent while I'm going after the guilty. Now, here's what I would do. If I'm protesting the police, I'll go disrupt the police chief's office. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go, make a stand there. And when I say disrupt, I don't mean, try to get arrested on purpose or destroy property. But I'm saying do a sit-in at the police department.
What if you're not being heard? I'm not saying I would want to go to that extreme, but what if you're not being heard?
And you know what?
How far will you go?
And you know what? And that's a good question, because I think there are many sides, whether it's the Israel-Gaza conflict, whether it is political polarization, whether it is people who either feel their country's being taken from them, democracy is at stake, women's rights, whatever, the issue might be. Everybody on these sides is sort of gearing up to do more than has been done before. Because they feel that they're not being heard by doing what they've done. I think there was a poll that said 1 in 5 Americans believe it might require political violence, like literal violence, like we've seen in other countries and we haven't seen in this country in decades. And I want to say one more thing before we get off of this, that would be almost like either required or inevitable because of the times that we're in.
I would agree.
And I almost feel like since the early 80s, and some of you might be too young. I remember just because I wasn't old enough to remember, but it was right in a book when I was growing up. The last person to even have a real attempt on their life was Ronald Reagan when he was shot at. But we have to remember for context, because I love history. I'm a big 19th to 20th century history person. There were thousands of bombings in the cities in the 60s and 70s, literally thousands. Like, we can't imagine how many splinter groups and freedom groups and we're not just talking the Black Panthers. There were a lot of different groups. There were just masses of, obviously, assassinations in the 60s. I mean, from Medgar Evers to JFK to Malcolm X to Bobby Kennedy to Martin Luther King. I mean, we haven't lived in that reality in a very long time, and it's almost spoiled us, I think.
I think
it makes us think we don't have real consequences.
It's easier said than done, saying oh yeah, I'll go to that extreme, but when it's really time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't pray for that to happen. No. But what I'll say is, we usually don't go too far as a nation without reaching some crest, and we're not there yet. And I think January 6th, because of the media, make us think that that's there. And to a point, that's certainly unprecedented. But it still doesn't really compare to the mass confusion that has happened around our country. And so I would just say I feel and actually agree with the student protesters, because I have come to the place where I feel that the actions of the government of Israel are beyond reasonable response. I know you have a right to defend yourself. I'm not sure if you should respond to 1,200 people being killed brutally without cause or reason in a terroristic fashion, with the killing of 40,000 people at last count, in an impossible situation anyway. But even then, who are we to say? Because if something were to happen to us, as we've seen before, we will bomb everybody to smithereens too. And you know what? We will allow for it as long as it keeps us safe.
That is true.
So remember, the reason all these kids can go to school safely in these colleges is because the United States is willing to bomb anybody that comes within 10 feet of them.
Yeah.
so I think we forget that. The reason we can do what we do, as much as I am not a super duper USA guy, is because if anybody fires a missile anywhere near New York City, that's going to be shot down.
Time.
Yeah, it's go time. Exactly. So it's like you're enjoying these freedoms, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to live in a world where that bubble was gone.
Right.
So Mike, you want to add anything to the conversation about these protests and what you think?
Oh, man. I understand why they're doing it. I don't think I will be out there.
I mean, they're doing tent cities.
Right. I mean, I don't know. It's to me, this is my personal opinion, it's gone a little bit too far. Now, I don't agree with, I think there's either a senator or a congressman, they're threatening to take away federal funds
from colleges.
For the colleges because they're protesting and the anti.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either. And there was a senator representative who encouraged people to drive to run over people who were blocking streets.
Okay, yeah, that's crazy.
And it's not the first time he said it.
I mean, that's crazy.
But I will say this: we see it a lot with young people, and I say young people because I'm not that anymore. There is an element of extremism with young people who do a lot of things with no consequences, and they're very extreme. And I'll be honest. I feel like if I get up in a police officer's face, and I'm talking about dead screaming, spitting in this man's face, I'm going to get jacked up.
Exactly.
But they will scream, and then be like, how dare you push me back? I'm like, I mean,
what do you expect?
What do you mean?
You better be happy you only got pushed back.
Well, I'll be at the pepper spray taser, you know what I'm saying? But, it's going somewhere. We don't know where it's going. We're going to see. But, we appreciate y'all tuning in. Please make sure you like and you share. We got to get into an awesome episode with our guest co-contributor. I'm going to call her not co-host, guest host. So she's one of our contributors, Mo. And it's time, Mo, for Meme of the Week.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
Welcome to Religiously Incorrect, ladies and gentlemen.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
Thank you. Send us your memes of the week.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
We are, these are all jokes. We are just playing.
All right, so we are back with this week's edition of Meme of the Week. This one is a video meme, and we have talked about on multiple occasions the good old-fashioned testimony service. Good old-fashioned, and I love me a good testimony service. And I've almost forgotten how, here's the word I'm going to use, vibrant testimony services.
That's the word you're going to go with?
Vibrant.
Okay.
Vibrant testimony services are. Here is a sister with a testimony that I think a lot of folk can relate to.
I said it's waiting on you.
I love the Lord tonight. And Jesus is coming back. But I'm sitting here just thanking God that he didn't come back in 1979.
All right.
Because I was not saved.
You better testify.
I got saved in 1980.
Praise him.
Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
It was a
It was the
for me.
hair. It was her hair shaking.
It was the hair. It was the hair.
shaking.
It was the hair. But I love how specific
The dates are
she
the year.
was. She said, "I'm so glad Jesus didn't come back in 1979 because I didn't get saved until 1980."
It's a relatable testimony.
Everybody has that testimony. If you got saved today, you should get up and say, "I thank God Jesus didn't come back yesterday."
Because I got saved
today.
Now I'm ready.
Now I'm ready. Right. From 1980 on, I was ready. But boy, right up till the night before,
I was not.
I was not ready. I mean, I love it, man. I love it. I love it. And it's funny because she's probably been saved a long time. I mean, that's probably a newer video. She said that video was from 1981. No, but that video is probably at least 30, 40 years old. I don't think it's that old. It's probably just bad quality. But so it's funny how you can go back to a testimony. Mm-hmm. You know, you've been saved a long time, but you still remember. And that's what some folk used to say. I know my old saints know this. I remember the day. Mm-hmm. When the Lord cleaned me up and saved me. It was June 7th, 1972 at a tent revival in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You know, they know exactly.
It was raining that day.
It was raining that day. I was late getting off work, got to the church house late.
And I just felt the spirit.
I was going to lead a service. That's what I wasn't going to stay there. I didn't want to be there. I love it. I love it. But that's a good testimony. She said, "I'm so glad he didn't come back in 1979."
Do you guys miss testimony service?
Yes. It's so funny. I was driving and I was thinking about back when I was growing up, and they used to have those testimonies, and you know, as a child, I used to laugh sometimes. I'm like, come on now.
Right.
But I do miss them. That was a nice little portion of the service.
It was a good portion of the service.
But some people were.
There it is.
Yeah.
People forgot how to testify.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Now, every once in a while, you'd have a weird one or a strange one. Now, you get people the mic now, they telling whole stories, you know. So I wish we could do, are we good?
Yeah.
I wish we could do a testimony like service.
We could try it.
We could try it.
See what
I think
happens.
it might be different now.
You think it might be different now?
Because we haven't had it in so long, and the reason why we didn't have it, I think if we had it again, it might change.
It might hit. It might hit.
It might.
Might be
We're going to bring it back.
We might bring it back. You never know.
Yeah. People want to tell their testimonies.
Well, here's what I would do. Now, some people like designate somebody every week to tell a testimony.
Okay. So don't just open the floor.
Some of our, not an open floor, open mic situation. Okay. Some have done like pre-recorded testimonies, which I think is a little bit.
It's safer.
It's safer, but I think it takes away from the rawness and the realness
the genuineness of it.
It's not as authentic.
Yeah. But here's what I would like to. I mean, I'd like to try it. I'd like to see where it goes.
Sing some congregational songs and just go in.
Glenn said you'd have to hand pick them. Some people don't know what a testimony is.
A testimony could be anything, right?
Man, I thank the Lord for this good weed he blessed me with last night.
I went straight to sleep.
Sleep.
That's their testimony.
And I was blessed with an abundance of Doritos. I mean, ain't no telling.
It's a risk you take.
So I vacillate between the two because there's a risk because you don't know what'll be said, but I am kind of anti-overproduced experiences that should be organic. Mm-hmm. And I can't speak to the special moments we've had in church growing up, going to other churches, being the organizer. When someone just gives a powerful testimony, it just means so much. But so often it gets swallowed up by people just mumbling and fumbling. And it's not like you got to be a good speaker.
Okay, TD Jakes. Swallow that.
Swallow. The testimony services were swallowed. But okay, there you go, Jason. If I were to do a testimony, I would literally put like a 2-minute countdown on the screen.
What if they're not?
Like on the screen, like they could see it.
What if not?
Like, I want you to give your testimony. Right, Tanya gonna say they was broke, but the Lord let me hit the lottery. And then I'll be mad because I ain't seen your tithes. You ain't tithed yet. But I think there could be a time for someone to get up and just say, hey, if you'd like to sign up to give a testimony this month, we'd like to share. Or do you just like to stand up and sing your song? Because that's what it used to be. Just stand up, sing your song. You sing a little piece of I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. Then you say, I give honor to the pastor, the mothers, the saints and friends. God been good to me, y'all. He has kept me. He has blessed me. I mean, that's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear from like, well, y'all, man, I don't even know what to say. You know what I mean? Like,
I want to hear one of them back in the days when a mother used to get up and get her testimony.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We might have, you know what we might have to do? We might have to let the mothers testify.
Let's see. Tatum got it right.
She got it. 2 minutes don't work at funerals.
Nah,
it won't work in a testimony service. Well, in all fairness, they know that body ain't got nowhere to go, and and they know people are too polite to shut them down.
As the coordinator, I'll hold up signs.
Here we go.
What you need is that Sunday school bell.
That bell.
Yeah.
Now that bell we've used, at watch night services. My father used to use the bell when he let the minister speak at watch night.
Okay.
He's like, I'm giving you 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
I'm telling you, I will hold up the sign.
I say we let the mothers start and teach, because it's almost like, this is what I'm saying. We have to teach the church again what church is. You know, she said, don't do it, you go get mad. I might. You're right. I might. If I get up and walk out, y'all know what's going on. Scott said, have the organist ready to play them off like the Oscars.
That don't work either.
But here's the other thing. Testimony service was pre-streaming.
Yeah,
Yes.
True.
Yes.
Testimony
That's true.
service was pre-streaming. She said, just have the choir start singing.
That's true. Now it's going to be on live.
And it never goes away.
Ever.
Man. There's going to be so many clips.
And that's what I'm trying to do. I don't want to create a meme out of somebody who is funny.
Being sincere.
But they're sincere.
Yeah.
You know.
It's something to think about.
Because even in the church, when we chuckle and laugh, we still doing it out of love.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So when little things happen in church, it was out of love. Like, I still love since so-and-so. But once that sucker go out,
somebody
and they don't
screen
know who
recorded
it is, they'll be so cruel to the person.
I mean,
well, we'll think about it. We might have to do, like I said this summer, I might try some things out to mix up the service. So we'll see where it goes.
We'll try one of these Sundays.
Try that one of these Sundays. We'll see what happens.
I'll coordinate it. I got it.
Mo, you are not about to give yourself a position in the church.
All my Second Baptist people on there, I am the event coordinator.
Listen.
If y'all did not know.
No, you're not. I have never had to correct somebody publicly on my podcast, but I'm sorry. We have not decided that. But anyway, we want to thank our sponsors, the Phillips Family Care Businesses, Phillips Care Lawn Services. I love to do my own lawn, but if you don't or you're not able to, call Phillips Care. They've been in business for over a decade, actually far longer than that. Fernando and his crew will get you right. 330-219-7916. Everything related to your outdoor work and service. You can count on the pork chop. I know the pork chops are good. You can count on Phillips Care to get you right. And while you're at it, spring cleaning is here. Need to get your garage cleaned out. Need to get things moved out. Need your carpets cleaned. They'll do everything, even renovation and maintenance work. They will take care of you. Phillips Care Cleaning Service doing residential and commercial properties. Call them at 330-219-7916 or check them out on Facebook at Phillips Care LLC. And also, we want to thank Action, the Alliance for Congregational Transformation, influencing our neighborhoods. ActionOH.com is our website, and they are promoting so many issues and advocating for those who cannot speak for themselves, working in voter engagement, fair housing, food insecurity, and anywhere people need to come together in activism and in organizing. You can count on Action to be there and to do that. that. And we thank them all for being sponsors of Religiously Incorrect. So our show subject, our meat subject, the reason we wanted Mo on tonight in Pastor Jeff's absence is that this show title is Faith in Flux. And we are specifically talking about the church and its relationship with millennials and Gen Z. Now, I don't want to go too low into like Gen Alpha, which are like your teenagers. I want to stick with like a Gen Z. And let's just say, for discussion's sake, young adults about 21 and up.
Okay.
Let's just say 21 to 23 and up, so to speak, up to about my age, about early 40s, and how we can engage young people. It's been talked about and fretted about. Every church talks about, we got to reach the young folk. We got to reach the young folk. And dare I say, just about everybody that uses that phrase, we got to reach the young folk, ain't reaching the young folk and probably are not equipped and able to. So I wanted Mariah to be on here, and I want you to just give a little summary of, to you, you recently joined, now it's hard to say recently, it's been almost 2 years now, right? At Second Baptist,
Yeah.
but you're still one of the newer members of Second Baptist. And tell us what age you were when you joined and what made you want to join Second Baptist. And we're going to talk a little bit about what makes people who are younger want to join church. We hear about a lot about why I don't go to church.
Right.
I want to hear about why some choose to go to church or have come back to the church. And Mike, I want you to focus on her because I'm going to grab my laptop and I want to pull up a survey that I did some time ago, and I want to go over some of those things.
Okay.
So talk to the people about when you came, about what age you were, and what drew you back to church.
I was 26 when I joined. Yeah, 26. And what made me join the church was first of all, Second Baptist we have a lot of outreach. So that's something in the community. So it's not just kind of like, I feel like back in the days, a lot of pastors and a lot of churches are just like in the church, but they're not going outside of the church. And also what made me join is a younger pastor. I feel like Pastor Todd is a lot more relatable in his preaching to the younger generation. So that's kind of what really drew me to join.
Okay. Now with that, you said outreach was a core thing for you. And you said that, how do I say this right? That having a younger pastor, so a pastor being relatable,
Right.
Can be helpful. Can someone be older and still relatable, do you think?
I think if they make the decision to be relatable, they can. I think that a lot of times they just choose not to be relatable.
So what do you mean by relatable? I think we kind of want to flesh that out. Like, what do you mean by relatable?
I feel like when I say relatable, like you understand real life. Like you understand what's going on. You understand this generation. You understand what year we're in. You don't expect, like the expectation. Like I feel like pastors used to preach at people, not to people, but at people. I feel like you preach to us.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the biggest things. You do that. You break down the word where we would understand it in a way that I feel like sometimes older pastors don't.
Okay, there we go. I have what I called a church engagement survey that I did, and I want to put a date on this. This is all the way back in, so it just came up to the most recent. It had to be about 18 months ago. And here are some of the questions that I asked. Some of the questions, I had 100 responses to this, so this is going to be good. What your Sunday attendance was before COVID, what your attendance was during COVID, and what you're doing now. I asked this question when I watch online to the recipients, and I'm going to get to it. When I watch online, the most important thing to me is, here's the three options: the music quality and style, the preaching, or the quality of the live stream. Okay, those are the three options. The top response was 64% the preaching. When I watch church online, the most important thing to me is the preaching. The 33% of the people said the quality of the live stream. 3%, 3 people, said the music, style, and quality was most important. Now, I want to be clear here. most of my respondents were under the age of 50.
Interesting.
Most of them were under the age of 50. We had some older people, but we had a lot of people who were considered, middle-aged to young adults and even younger. Do you agree with that? So when you talk about watching online, because online was a big part of what we do you agree that whether you're online or not, the most important thing is the preaching and the word?
Yes, I agree with that.
There is a contention out there that we have to, as a church, to reach younger people, especially to kind of keep up with this world where there are a lot of, so much visual and great production. I mean, and I've heard it like nobody wants to go to Beyonce concert and then go back to grandma's church.
Right.
Nobody wants to go to an event where it's just beautiful, everything's all, organized stuff and go back to just like our churches as we know them. And it doesn't always seem to always translate. And I think there's a group of us that love to see that because we love to see things great and improved and we want to be that. But it doesn't translate to the people who are coming all the time. How do you feel about that desire for production and excellence and the choir got to be the bomb, band's got to be killing, singers should be professional, like that whole style? Well,
just between yesterday and today, I actually kind of asked some people in the generation, like the question about what is it that you look for in a church or what is it that you desire? And actually several people mentioned the choir, the band, the production of it. So I think that is relevant and important to quite a few people in this generation, actually. Okay. So, I mean, far as me, it's important, but it's not like at the top of my list. Okay. What were some other responses that you got? I got community outreach was one of the biggest things that I got. Let me see. Somebody said if the service is long, they want short services.
Okay. They want short, they don't want service. Yeah. What do you consider long, like a short, especially for my young adults? And you know what? Don't do me a favor, y'all. If you're watching right now, tag a young adult or millennial or someone like 50 or under, like younger Gen X, millennial, Gen Z. Tag somebody because we want to hear from them. If you're watching, I want to hear from you. If you're watching on a shared page, come to the actual video page at Religiously Incorrect because I want to make sure I see all of your comments. And I'm going to check my other pages to make sure I catch everybody. But how long is too long to a millennial to be in church?
When you go past the hour and a half, 2 hour mark, I would say. Okay.
Does it matter what the service consists of? Like if it's engaging 2 hours and you feel like your attention is being kept, it's relevant to your life, it's not a big waste. But because I feel like you can have a really engaging 2 hours and you can have a waste of time 1 hour.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If it's a service where you're engaged, you're not going to even be paying attention to the time that is. But if you're in a service and you're just like, oh my gosh.
I can't wait for this to be over. Yeah. Right. And so to that, when you're in a service, when you're in a service and you're watching a service move along, what are some things you do and do not like to see and experience as far as like, yeah, this is really taking me out. Like, I don't need all this. Like, what are some things? And you can be honest. We're not going to put you out Second Baptist. It's okay. You can be honest with your pastor. Maybe this is a bad idea. And if you're watching, y'all comment too.
I'm trying to think. What is something that I can do without, you're saying?
Like some people say, people who just have like these super long announcements and, or just up talking for no reason, letting a bunch of folk just talk and things.
We don't really do that.
I know we don't, but I'm just saying if you're in service anywhere, not in our church, but anywhere.
Oh, well, I can do without not as many songs. Some churches sing too much to me.
Okay. Some churches sing too much.
I can definitely do with less singing.
Okay.
I got one.
Okay.
Long offerings.
Long offerings.
Oh my God.
Wait, do people really even still do like the whole
Some
offering?
people do.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. Some people do. Now, COVID has changed a lot.
Yeah, I'll say, do people still like line up and walk around?
Some do. Oh. Some have gone back to walking. But I don't think the walking around is the problem. I think it's the talking about it and the pastor still giving that speech.
Yeah.
where you have to go on and on and on.
Yeah.
You know.
I would always say what I can do without, and I will always say this, is in the end of service when a pastor, once, you calling people to the altar to get saved, baptized, whatever the case may be, when a pastor just keeps on, like, I know somebody, but it's like, okay, it's been 15 minutes. Nobody's coming. Like, please stop. Like, let's stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have much of a crowd and you kind of know everybody in the room.
Right. I've been to services where, like, I know it's somebody. Come on, I know it's somebody.
I'm like, it's 12 of us. 11 of us are saved. And that brother just being rebellious right now. They're not coming this time.
Right.
Like, let it. Right. I get it.
So how do you read the room? Like when you make the altar call, what's your protocol? How do you gauge it?
First of all, I'm using common sense. If I've noticed that we have people in the room that are guests, visitors, or, I don't know the status, I'm going to focus a little more. Because you never know how or when someone's going to come to that decision. Some people do need a little bit of time. But there have been times when I'm like, yeah, this just ain't it today. But it's up to me to make the call and give the person time to contemplate. Because a lot has gone on. There's a lot to digest. And there's a battle going on within that person. Right. So you are trying to give that time and space for them to process all of that. And I think that's fair. Mm-hmm. Because, I do still believe that you never know when someone's last time will be.
Right.
And while I don't throw that you can go to hell tonight stuff at people, I still believe that lady could have went to hell in 1979.
December 31st,
She could have went to hell in 1979. But thanks be to God, she made it to 1980. But so I because I still believe that, I think it's important. Scroll up a little bit because Ava Angel said something. Ava Angel said, they said that them extra grunts and hollering be a little too much. I think that's a matter of taste. I'm a hollerer. I'm a hooper at the end of my sermons. And I respect that there are some people who are like, I don't want you hooping at me. I don't need all that.
Oh, no, I got a question.
Yes.
Like, to circle back a little bit.
Okay.
So is that just the thing that pastors say is I know it's somebody? Or because I feel like every pastor says that I know it's somebody in here. I feel it. Or is that genuine? Every pastor feels this at the end of service?
I think some of us feel it and some of us want to feel it.
Okay.
And let's just be clear, man. It's very evident and obvious to us that everybody is not where they ought to be with God.
Right.
And if you're in a room with more than 5 people, one of them probably need prayer for something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I do get what you're saying, Angel, because I've watched guys literally turn into washing machines and I will yell and hoop and say something every time I yell and hoop until I get to the part where I say, ain't he all right? You know what I mean? But what I'm not going to do is just literally just keep going, yang, 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 yang. I mean, there's guys that literally do that. They literally are just like a car that won't start.
Yeah, that's ridiculous at that point.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? And I just feel like if you're going to put exuberance behind what you say something. And then, there's something we literally call it. It's almost like the preacher's celebration and praise. Like, y'all get happy when y'all sing y'all songs. Y'all, you know what I mean? This is my spot. Mm-hmm. But it's also going to be reasonable. If I'm preaching a 35-minute sermon, which I timed out almost exactly 35 minutes about my timing, before I do invitation. I do not include invitation in that. But 35 minutes. If I spend 2 minutes of that 35 in that space,
mm-hmm.
I'm not about to spend 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
Of that time in that space. Oh yeah, I know who you are. I knew who you were. I just didn't want to call your name out. I love you, cuz I didn't want to call your name out. I know who you are. Yeah, because we friended each other. Sonia said the pastor's led by God, young and old. Everything's not old fashioned. Remember, you're correct. We'll scroll up a little bit so we can catch a few more comments. I might have missed any comments. I love your comments. Sister Jeanette McFadden asked, why can we accept young people but don't accept their version of a church song? Or our new generation church singers?
Oh my gosh.
Do you believe we don't accept people?
I don't accept it. Some of these new songs, they are so busy trying to make them sound like secular songs. It's ridiculous.
Ooh, well, that's a young person telling you, Sister Jeanette. And first of all, I want to say, I don't think we reject them. I think there are spaces where that translates more.
Yeah.
There are churches that are more modern. They do more modern stuff. But it's, churches have a culture and a flow, and God and the Holy Spirit will interrupt and, progress that church and modern and however he wants to do. But if we're like just forcing unrelatable music on a house of worship, that's one thing. But one thing I'll say is most of our traditional churches, including our own, if our young people want to do it, we will give them a space to do.
Right.
We have rap, we've had dance, we've had, we've done a lot of things. Youth Sunday. And I'm just talking, extreme different stuff. It's kind of up to them for it to be like an every week thing, but it's also wise to know that it's not an every week thing in our church. In somebody else's church, it might be an every week thing. And so I would just say every church has their culture, and let's just be honest. There are newer and younger people who don't accept anything that doesn't sound like what they like.
Right. Absolutely.
And they make fun of people who want to sing a hymn or a congregational song and act like, I'm sitting there, wait, where's the bump at? Where's the the beat? And so it's just like there has to be fairness on both sides. What I will say, my personal opinion, because I've been in the church all my life, is that I have watched the older traditional church bend more for younger people when there's an opportunity for them to participate than younger people give respect to older people. I've watched more younger people dismiss
I agree with that.
older traditional and act like there's no place for it, or act like they're just kind of placating and playing church, old school church, like they want to play old school church. But older church, it's hard. You think it ain't hard for some 80-year-old deacon to sit there and listen to some kid rap?
I'm
you know
sure
what I mean? And then still say, son, I'm proud of you. You know what I mean? That's not his thing.
Yeah.
So I like that, but I think that there just has to be understanding that everything's not for everybody. That's why there's diversity in the kingdom.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
What else becomes a major issue for young adults? I heard at a recent session I was at that one of the main concerns that young people, and this was a colleague of mine who's my age, talking to college students. Now think about our college protesting students and the stuff they talk about. He said that he was told by a young lady, I don't like the church because my church are too capitalistic. It's too capitalistic, meaning what we just said about trying to be too corporate, trying to be too polished. They're like, I feel like I'm in a mall where you're trying to sell me something. I feel like you're trying to throw the bright lights at me. I feel like, and it's not always like the offerings. It's not always like you asked for money, but it's like your endeavors are very clearly to build this brand, to build this business. Even sometimes, and I'm watching, it's funny because it's a college student, she's like talking mainly about the like younger brand building culture. Like I'm trying to build a TikTok and I'm trying to build a church too. Right. You know what I mean? And they're like, we can see through that. Yeah. So do you see that as I guess what I'm asking is, do you see that as a barrier where the church can become too corporate and it kind of loses its like organic community?
Some churches, absolutely. Like a lot of these churches, you see like the little mini clips, the little TikToks and stuff. Those churches are definitely more like corporate, more than like actual. You come to that church and you connect with the other members and the pastor and things like that. So I definitely think that could be a problem with some churches, but I don't think across the board that that's really like a hindrance from young people coming to church. Right.
And there's a word for it, to be honest. Like, I can't tell you how many of my colleagues and peers, and I'm not, calling anybody out or picking on anybody, but some of our younger people who work, especially if they already work in production and music, and they're the ones, and we by default, because I am that person, we want quality. We do. We're fighting to always make it better because we feel like it's a representation of ourselves. If you're a musician, it's your art, and which I relate to. You don't want to be misrepresented when you're offering excellence, but it comes across in poor quality. Right. So like, I'm a really good singer or musician, but the sound system, the stream sounds whack. So now I look whack. Right. You know what I mean? And honestly, all types of professionals feel that way. That's why when you hire an artist, they're going to ask you what kind of equipment you have and make you provide this because they don't want your system to make them look bad. So that's understandable. The problem I have is we literally start to take on corporate methods. Like literally they'll say content. You have to produce more content. You have to produce more clips. You have to drive engagement. That's what they're talking. Drive engagement. BTS. Don't know if you ever heard that phrase. Put up behind the scenes clips. There was like an epidemic for a while of people doing things like, let me just paint a picture. where I would take Mike outside and tell him to record me pulling up to the church and getting out my car.
Yeah.
So that I can say, hey, y'all, we ready for church? You know, it's a good day today. And they'll say, your BTS is weak. Your BTS is strong. You know, you need to engage. And I know that putting up little clips are a nice way of engaging people.
Right.
I do. I'm walking in with the boys like, hey, y'all, it's about 45 minutes before church. If you haven't gotten up, you're more than welcome to come, da-da-da-da-da. My problem is when it ceases to be organic.
Yeah. Right.
When it ceases, when it's so pre-planned, somebody's looking at numbers like, oh, let's switch that so we can get more.
This video only got 400 views. We need it to be at 800 like last one. Yeah,
people are having meetings about this stuff.
But content is important nowadays. It is important. Because I would say it's been clips that I've seen of pastors. That's what made me actually like go to YouTube and listen and see what this pastor is really about. And you find out that clip was way better than the whole sermon. But
okay.
Wow.
that's a thing.
Listen, cannot not be true though.
That is a thing.
And that's the danger. If you paint too good of a picture of one part, it's like a movie where the trailer was the bomb.
Yeah.
And then you found out that the trailer was the only good part of the movie.
Yeah.
Or you forget that while the content is impressive, and content can be impressive and impactful, that people who are actually looking for a church home, who are looking for fellowship and community, after they've engaged and consumed the content, they're still looking for more.
Yes. Yes.
They're still looking. The content might draw them, might engage them, might encourage them. But if they were looking for a home, a fellowship, and so I guess I want to go there now. Do you feel that younger people desire connection and fellowship? And I know we talk like membership old school, and I'm not sure everybody's like sold on membership. Like I want to be on the roll. But do you feel like what they're seeking is more than content and that they're looking for real connection? And what do you think that connection looks like? I do think they're seeking real connection just because the people that I talk to, just many of them say they want that connection with the church. They actually want to connect with the other members. They're looking for that church, that community within the church. And I think that's important to a lot of younger people because a lot of times, younger people, one thing that they say, they feel like they're like an outcast or they're being judged. They're looking for somebody to bring them in. And so I do think that's very important. Something that's bothered me for a long time is, and I've talked about it on the show and we're actually going to plan a show where we can kind of engage, is I know what it's like to be that church kid. I never really went anywhere but church. I'm a church kid and I'm a musician. I've been that guy, like always at the forefront, always concerned about making my church look good and all that. Sometimes I feel that our perspectives on what can help draw young people are out of touch, especially when we're seeking to draw people who have not lived our lives in the church all their lives. We know that people have not been raised to be super connected, and they're in their 30s and in their 40s, so it's new to them. But because I've always been connected, the things I'm concerned about might not be what they're concerned about. Right. So I know all the best gospel songs and want to make sure my church sings all the best gospel songs. I know what all the best organists sound like, so I want the best organist that can play for me. I want, this, that, and the other. Or I've been around it so long, and I really have this saying, and I'm going to probably trademark this. I call it bored church kid syndrome. Where I've been in this so long, it's old to me, right? And I forget that it's new to somebody else. Right. And so I want it all to change. Whereas the person who's 25, 35, 45 wasn't necessarily looking for what I've been looking at, right, or what I've been dissatisfied with. They were just looking for Jesus. They were just looking for community. And do you find that sometimes the things we're striving, and when I say we, I mean the whole church, and you kind of see all the methods and all the advertisements and all the flyers, do you feel like sometimes the advertisements and the things, and I'm talking younger people, are not really hitting the demographic they think they are, or maybe they're just looking for more church folk, like more people who are like me. I just want to have more church with people who are like me. Right. Like, what do you feel like your take is on what we look for as younger people who are in church versus what that person outside of church might actually be attracted to? So I think like us who, like you said, who came up in church, we kind of like, it's just all just natural. We just seeing it. It's just like, we're not really, what we're looking for pretty much is like
we want to get our spirit fed.
Okay.
I feel like that's what we're looking for. I think somebody, again, like newer to the church who didn't grow up in it, they are really, really looking for that community, for somebody to really draw them in, take them under their wing. They need that, because they're not coming into it like, oh, I want my spirit fed. Like, this is just like new to me. They're looking for support. And I feel like, I've been told that a lot of times they feel like they come into church like the first time, they feel like I said, an outcast, or like
outsider.
Nobody really accepted them. And so now they're not coming back. So
Okay.
I think that's the biggest thing when somebody's newer in the church.
Can I push back a little bit on that? Do you feel like sometimes people, because of our modern sensitivities, they look for and expect too much right away? Because like that, I feel like some people are like exaggerative in their statements.
Right.
And they kind of play that nobody accepted me and like nobody threw their arms around me. And to be honest, from a pastor and a lifer in the church, sometimes you don't know which one wants the full embrace right away, which one wants their space. Because other folk will get online and say, I went to that church and they were smothering me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be bothered. And I don't want to talk to my neighbor. And I don't want to hug 5 people. Because we're so, as a younger generation, I'll say about my generation and younger, we're so more sensitive to like our mental sensibilities and our social sensibilities. And what do you call it when you're not like a people person? You're like, I'm antisocial, or I have anxiety issues, or this. Like, you don't know as the church who that person is. So you might show that great love to them, and they're
like, this is too much.
It's too much.
Right.
Then you try to be a little hands off and just let them experience the service. And somebody will say they didn't love me. You know what I mean? They probably didn't talk to me because I wasn't dressed right. And I'm like, nah, I just didn't know. I
do think for some people that is a cop-out excuse.
Okay.
I do think I definitely think it's a cop-out. But at the same time, like you said, how do you really know? I mean, it's your first time ever being in this church. How do we know that you wanted to be embraced and loved and welcomed? Or how do we know that you wanted to just kind of like let you be? You don't know. You really don't.
Scott asked a very interesting question. He said, how do you bring people from seeking connection to seeking redemption? And I know where he's going with that. I think what he's saying is there are some people, and Lord knows this is not a new problem, who come to the church because it's a good place to be, and they are encouraged by the message and they do like the fellowship, but they're not thinking about their souls as seriously.
That's where I was going to go. Go ahead, though.
They might not think they need to really repent.
Right.
They take the parts they like to hear. If the pastor get up, and I know this for a fact, if I get up and start talking about haters, I know where my amen's going to come from. If I start talking about you need to repent for your wrong because you've been living in immorality, I know who's going to be like, y'all, and I'm not picking on my cuz, but you here y'all go judge it again. But it's like, but I got to preach that I think God wants us to live right and be saved.
The way I feel about it, I could be wrong. I think that becomes a natural transition. If you are going to church for connection originally, but yet you're coming every Sunday, I think you are naturally, I feel like it's inevitable. You're going to start transitioning. You're going to start feeling that conviction where you need to repent for your wrongdoing. You're not going to want to do wrong because it's been going into your spirit, whether you call yourself just taking bits and pieces. You can't help that. So I think that's a natural transition.
And I have friends who've said that since I've been coming. Right. I've been trying not to cuss. I've been trying not to, and not because, of course I'll preach about it. Yeah. Like, come on, y'all. And I'll say it, like you said, I won't toot my own horn, but I try to say it in a way that's not like you and you all and you all and you all. Right. But I'll be like, y'all can't be up here praising the Lord on Monday, cussing everybody out on Sunday night. You know what I mean? Like, so you put it out there in that way, as opposed to like pointing down to people. But I do feel like there's a bit of a cop-out sometimes with that, but that some things do happen organically if you let relationship get built. I think there's space for that. But then there are also some people who, and again, I'll tell you why I know it's an old problem. Because it's a part of some of the membership I inherited at Second, and some of my members know this. There were people who were socially connected to the church. Socially, I went because when you move to Warren, you go to Second Baptist. My parents went there. Right. I'm here, but I'm not even, honestly. And of course, can you say they ain't serious? Because who are you to judge? But it's evident. Right. You know what I mean? Evident. But they're lifers. They've been members since '75, since the '80s.
And that's not going to change.
And so to me, there is a danger in just socially being connected to the church because you like it or because you're familiar with it or whatever. Mike, you wanted to pop in on your perspective on what Mo was saying?
Yeah, real quick. Is the definition of being saved now different from the definition of being saved, say, 20 years ago? Because it seems like now, okay, not picking on anybody in particular, but just from what I've noticed, it's like people come in, they get saved, but then they're not really changing. They have their own definition of being saved.
Well, I think the difference is being saved used to come with the expectation and a pretty immediate, and when I say immediate, I don't mean tomorrow or next week, but a pretty immediate expectation of living saved. Like you're supposed to live better. And we should hear within, I'm not trying to give no time period. But at some point you should be saying, I used to drink, I don't drink no more.
Right.
You know, I was struggling with smoking and God is delivered. We used to hear like deliverance testimonies. You know what I mean? And I think a part of the outgrowth of the don't judge me culture has been, if I say I'm coming to Jesus and me and God have a relationship, I've literally heard people like, we have an understanding.
God knows my heart.
God knows my heart.
Right.
And there should be like no outward sign or symbol or witness that something that God has done in you has changed. You know, we used to sing it. That's the testimony song. Something on the inside, working on the outside, brought about a change in my life. We used to sing those songs because that was the point.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Do you think it's changed? Like, or do you what are people saying when they say I'm saved? Now, I'm not even saying I'm saying I'm saved anymore. They're saying I believe in God.
Right.
They're saying I'm a member of the church.
Yeah.
It just seems different now.
I don't think it's changed. I think people are trying to change it, but it hasn't changed. But you know, like you said, people just live in this. Me and God got our relationship. He knows my heart. No. I mean, yeah, he knows your heart, but that doesn't mean you can still just go do whatever you want to do and say I'm saved, but God knows my heart and he knows that I believe in him, so I'm going to go to heaven. It doesn't work like that.
Right. And some people often, we've like really lowered the bar to the point to where like, as long as I'm not like a murderer or like, you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
If I'm just, and excuse the phrase, y'all, because it's really incorrect. Excuse the phrase, y'all. You know, as long as I'm not pissy drunk, you know, but I just go out and have a good time here and there. You know, I'm, you know, but I ain't like, and then we start doing that comparative salvation. Like, I ain't sloppy like them. I'm not as hoish as them. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, you have this real relative.
It becomes that at least I didn't do this.
At least I'm not. At least. And so to me, I feel like that's dangerous because none of us have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. Right. But there used to be sort of a standard accepted behavior connected to a devout Christian.
It should be.
A devout Christian, particularly in the Protestant and, dare I say, black church, there was just this, and people wouldn't play with it. They would say, and some people still don't, if I'm not there, I'm just not there, and I'm not going to play with God. There used to be people who would consider that, playing with God, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. It should still be that expectation because some people say they saved, and I'm not judging nobody, but it's like, if that's what saved look like, then,
well, on one hand, it almost attracts people because this is what saved looks like. Right. But I think on another hand, it may repel people.
The people it attracts, I feel like, is the people who's not ready to be serious.
But I think that there are some real mental and emotional, and my cousin mentioned about young people who think they're being judged and feel they're being judged right off the bat. I feel that so much has happened. And I don't want to blame it all like the church is just so evil, so bad. But so much has broken down in our trust of, number one, any system and any standard of morality because we've been disappointed by so many things and we've been exposed to so many things. The idea of having this, you know, godlike reverence for figures in our community, which used to include pastors, political leaders, police officers, like that has just crushed down. And you add the social media to it, where we really get a picture in everybody's lives. And then some of us kind of chase that as pastors. We're trying so hard to be relatable that we're getting up preaching about how we smoke and drink and cuss. And God, I've literally listened to famous pastors talk that way. I'll cuss you out too. And I'm getting like, all right, I get that you are not perfect, but I don't think it's your job to promote
I don't think you should put that out there.
You should put that out there like as a crazy thing. But I would also want to say something about our emotional and mental sensitivity, as well as the culture that looks for a villain. I believe that people have been trained to feel they're being judged, no matter if they are or not.
Right.
And a part of that is I walk in the door not just feeling I'm judged, but I'm walking in the door not wanting to hear or be told anything different than what I've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only want slight adjustments and ones that are comfortable, and media and a lot of what we say has played a big part into that.
Truth be told, I think a lot of that judgment that people feel was just self-conviction. I don't really think you want to say I feel judged, but it's really just within yourself, because you know that there's some things that you have been doing that it's not right. And I agree with Lene's comment with our generation. So I definitely think that.
And I'll say this: there are so many strong voices out there that affirm those things that would have been questionable in another generation. And I think that you can only go so far, and we keep seeing the needle move.
Right.
We keep seeing the needle move. And I hate to sound like that old person, but in a way, it's like the stuff we hear out of these kids that we're so shocked by. The stuff we hear out of these kids, we have to remember it started somewhere.
Right.
They didn't just suddenly go wild. We kept sliding. Yeah, we don't want to shame the young lady that has the baby out of wedlock, and it was always wrong to shame them out of the church and to pretend that God doesn't love them and they're going to hell. But you jumped and we pushed it so far away from shame to complete celebration.
Right.
That there is no
there's no sense of shame anymore.
I've lived with, and I don't say this like I'm some kind of victim, but there are literally people who despise me because I'm married to one woman and all my kids are by the same woman, and they can't put that.
They can't wrap
I ain't got that story.
Yeah.
I ain't trying to be myself. And you might think it's not true. It really is true.
Yeah.
It really, literally, just off a picture of Facebook, who do you think you are? You think you're so perfect.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that we should shame people like how they used to do, but I also think that churches
how about for what they are doing?
Or what they're doing, correct.
Okay.
I also think the church needs to go back to setting people down. Like, why are you allowing this person to get up and they're doing things that they should not be doing? Because
if you don't, people will say you put them down and didn't accept their gift. Jesus loves them. So who cares if... And I struggle with that.
I get it, but like for an example, like to go back to the pregnant woman out of wedlock, like I just don't feel that if a woman is unmarried and she's pregnant and she was operating in the church, when that happens, I do feel that she should be set down.
But given love and
yeah, I don't think that it should be like, oh God, like, you know, I don't think it should be like back in the day, but I do think that it's time for you to sit down right now.
Right. And the funny thing is, there is a morality that exists, even outside of church. There are morals and expectations that if we were just having a casual conversation about these kids today, without a preacher being involved and without a Bible being thumped, we end up saying a lot of the same stuff. This is what's crazy to me. We end up saying a lot of the same stuff about how we're supposed to be living. But if we say it in church and put a scripture on it, then we're being judgmental.
Right.
So if we're talking about these wild kids, the parents ain't raising their kids and we would sit and shoot the breeze all day long about how our communities are messed up and it's a shame that these young men are out here selling drugs, and we'll just talk about whatever the subject might be. But let me read a scripture, preach about it, and say, these young, this is going on, that's going on, we need to fix it, we need to fix that. People will be like,
that pastor judge.
There you go, pastor, putting people down. How come he ain't thinking about
that's
what they're going through?
Right,
that's why I don't go to church. But then we'll come up with things like, well, what about the economic considerations? Or what about that boy didn't have an opportunity? Or what about him being fatherless? What you should be doing is this, that, and the other. And so I just feel like the morality is there, but there's been this breach between it being considered godly morality that godly people, godly spaces, godly preaching are supposed to promote. And what we're saying is we still believe in what's right and what's wrong to an extent, but we don't want a spiritual place to be that convicting.
Right.
But the problem is, I've watched this from my perch as a pastor. Boy, we only had them conversations after y'all lose somebody tragically.
Yeah.
Boy, we only had them conversations, and then all of a sudden we want to have a come to Jesus moment
Right.
without Jesus, by the way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we want to have we need to get ourselves together, y'all. And I'm like, but without God, we can't.
You can't.
You know, and we're seeing that we can't. You know, so I struggle with that, Mo, with a passion in my heart. I want to talk a little bit back to what you said about relatability and community outreach. Mm-hmm. You just said that, you know, relatability and community outreach is important. But I'll be honest, there's a lot of churches that do exactly what people think it ought to do, and they still don't go or feel like it's worth their time. And sometimes and I'm not saying this personally, I'm just saying across the board, they don't even give credit to the fact that it does happen. Mm-hmm. And I almost get a little discouraged to listen to people that I know have experienced somewhere the goodness of God through people. And if a conversation that's negative about the church comes up, they're the first ones
to chime in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people like that. I mean, some people you can't make some people happy. It doesn't matter what you do in the church. It doesn't matter what you don't do in the church. They're just going to find the reason why they can't be in church, and that's why they don't go.
Right. But I mean, as a pastor who has heard for a long time, this is what y'all should be doing. You sometimes want to just shake the screen and say, but we're doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or here's a maddening one. We have a big habit, and we do it in the secular world too, not just church. We will celebrate someone on a video we saw from another country or state doing the same thing that's happening right up under our nose. Mm-hmm. You could be running a nonprofit group, serving the community, feeding people, and they were like, oh, that's Mo. Let somebody post a picture of somebody in New York City taking a video of themselves feeding people.
You're like, this is the most amazing thing I've seen. You're like, wait a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
So circling back to that outreach, what types of outreach and engagement outside of a church service do you think would be helpful to engage? I'm not trying to draw or attract or kind of, you know, force I'm trying to just get numbers. But if you're trying to build engagement, what type of activities or atmospheres would be helpful to young people and younger adults?
What I can say to that is every person that I talk to and ask this question, they mention outreach, and a lot of them say outreach with like their children. So I guess that's important. Okay. Not I guess, it must clearly be important because literally every single person say outreach with their children.
Okay.
And their children may never understand, which is kind of like, aren't you just as important? So I don't know.
I get it. No, but I understand. Well, everybody, that's very common since you mentioned that. A lot of people, if you have a family, they think about what will this help my children to connect with God or to help instill values and morals in. That I think that I know for a fact that that's a very strong consideration for people. Like you said, they're just as important, and sometimes they don't see themselves as just as important, and that's nothing new either. Generations of people have sent their kids to church.
Yes.
Get on that church van, you know, go with the youth group, and I'll see you at the Easter play. You know what I mean? Like if you're doing a speech and you're singing, I'll be there, but otherwise my devotion's not there. And any of us who have ever served or preached or taught would tell you that the number one thing that can build God into your child is you being a devoted parent. You know, and that doesn't mean you're perfect. And don't be a total hypocrite, but being a devoted parent and trying to show them how you pray, how you live, how you treat people, how you talk outside of church, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, most people, like, they cancel themselves out, and it's just like, well, I mean, if your child, I mean, you can send them while they're young, and you can demand, and you're going to church, I'm sending you to church, but like at some point, the question's gonna come up, like, well, you're sending me, but I never ever see you go, so what's going on here? Help me explain this to me. Right.
And that's true.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, that rebellion is going to come in like, you've been making me do this all this time.
But I ain't seen you go.
Right. You be at home cussing like a sailor, sending me for Newports and sending me off to church. Right. I want to end on this last piece. How important, because I saw a rise in this, and I really feel like some people missed it, but I think that, and I'll do a little back patting, but also, applaud Second Baptist for this. I think especially since let's say the last 10 years or so, there's been a stronger cultural sensitivity among young, especially black, and I'm going to talk about the black church for a minute here, y'all, that they're more in tune to their cultural identity. I'm not saying that it should override being a Christian. I'm not saying that, but there is obviously a greater appreciation for history, hearing our stories told, doing things in the narrative and in the style and in the familiarity of our culture. And that prior to that, especially Black Lives Matter movement and things like that, there had been like this real expansion, and it's still going on, of mixing and, a lot of integration is the best way to say it. I have no problem going to a white church or a church that's not predominantly black, or a church that doesn't sound like an old black church, doesn't have to. But then I see a return that I think a lot of people have missed out on, where they're like black young adults. Like, when I go to church, I want to have an experience that is familiar to me.
Right.
I want to hear, just like I want to hear soul music, like I want to hear gospel.
Right.
I don't mind the hooping preacher. I don't mind, they don't know it was choir robes anymore, but I don't mind pews and choir robes.
Yeah.
How much does cultural connection matter? Like, I want to be among my own people, and I want to be in familiar spaces and sounds.
I think for the vast majority of people, that hugely matters. That's going to connect you in a different way that other churches would not be able to, you won't be able to connect with. So I think that's really important. Like, me personally, I couldn't see myself like joining any other church outside of a black church.
Okay.
So,
and I agree, I can see why.
Yeah.
Frustrations with African American churches, and sometimes that frustration is built out of familiarity. I know these people so well. I live around them all the time. I get to see all the dirty laundry, and especially if you're in small towns, like, you can't escape it. And sometimes it's like, I'd rather go somewhere where I'm not connected. And I don't mind having new experiences, hearing new sounds, hearing new songs. I've been listening to the same old hymns my whole life. I do like the freshness. And Jeanette mentioned earlier about the newer sounds, different songs, da-da-da-da. I've watched some people thrive there, and they're doing very well. I've watched some people like return, like, that was good for a season, that was okay, or I never really fit in. I kind of want to go to a place where I feel more connected. I will say that connection still needs to come with a certain competency and capacity. So nobody wants to go to a familiar church that's just totally out of order, a waste of time, not feeding your spirit, not even trying that hard to present worship in an orderly and excellent fashion. And I had a friend, I don't want to call him a friend as if we are friends, but a Facebook friend, Elder Mark Moore, who's doing a phenomenal job in Atlanta, Spirit and Truth Church. They just launched, as a matter of fact. And he made a comment that modern is a trap for churches. Young people don't mind being in traditional spaces or going through churches, we know it, as long as they're being fed and there's relevancy to their lives. And actually, we have more of a chance to be relevant because we're speaking directly out of shared experiences. I'm black, you black, so when I talk about God can help all of us in this unjust world, bruh, I'm getting pulled over just like you. Like, I've said that in service. Like, I'm getting pulled over just like you. We're trying to make it in this world just like you. So, like, my white friend can't say that. Right. I don't know what it's like to be followed around a store. You know what I mean? They can't say that. So I'm not comparing us. Right. Because they might have, obviously the gospel, they have, God's teachings for them. But I feel like we don't seize on that enough. And you just tell me what you think. Sometimes I think we try too hard not to be us.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the quote he said, the quote you just quoted, because most of the time, most of us younger people at some point in the black household, whether it be from you being over your grandmothers, your parents, we've experienced that traditional black church. I don't know too many people actually who can say, like, I just never experienced this at all whatsoever. So it's what we're used to. So I don't think when we come back to church, if we've been out of church or whatever, we come in, we're like, oh, this is just too old fashioned at all. I don't really think being modern and trying to incorporate all this newer stuff is really necessary to have younger people in the church.
Right. And I do want to say to that point, I do think there's far more of us, especially younger us, probably more in your age range. And you are how old, just by the way? We didn't say 28. How old. You're 28 now. Who may not have had a devout or consistent connection with the church. And unfortunately, a lot of what they know about the church has come through the snippets and the clips and the movies and the shows, which have been mostly been like caricatures and stereotypes and jokes. And, you know, it used to be like we all went to church, and I'd go like back to the 90s. Like we all went to church.
Yeah.
So if we saw that skit on In Living Color, or we saw that episode of Martin or Fresh Prince when they go to church, we still knew that wasn't church.
Right.
But if you're not raised in church,
and you watch Green,
and you were raised in the era of Tyler Perry movies and Steve Harvey skits, and you know, if that's all you know, that I think makes it a little different, because honestly, their job is to entertain. Their job, like anybody else, is to take the funniest parts. And again, they're funny, but we know that there's so much more.
Right.
And they took like the 5% and made it the 95%. And that a lot of people do think that that's what that is.
Yeah.
You know, and there's just a bunch of mean old church ladies trying to beat everybody down, and the pastors sleeping with everybody, and or you know, just craziness. Everybody just gets happy for no. You know what makes me mad as a pastor when I watch these shows, and I know they're 30-minute shows. They got to get right to the point. But the pastor like literally gets up on the show, says amen, and everybody starts shouting. And I'm like, you know how hard I have to work to get folks to stand up?
or have you hear right at the end of the song, and everybody's just like,
everybody's already there. I'm like, you know how hard we have to work as preachers to get folk happy.
Realistically, when you watch those shows, like I don't know, like Greenleaf, I don't know if you ever heard of it or seen
no, I've heard of it.
I think realistically, like somewhere in your mind, even if you didn't grow up, and you got to know, like this ain't life.
But I will say, like we said earlier, if you already have an image and you're looking for a confirmation of that image,
then
that gives you.
If you make
it gives you, and I'll say one last part. And Lord knows we're guilty of this, but again, we're devoted church folk. And if all you see is the joke,
right,
then it's much easier for you to never quite take church seriously or God seriously. I just think that this is a part of our lives, but for a lot of people, that's the bulk. And you never have a chance to take it seriously. So I'm looking forward. We just started a group in our own church. We call it the Youngish Group. But I want to do another survey and follow up with it. This was a post-pandemic church engagement survey. But next time I want to talk and ask some questions and go over those answers and be more specific about in-person worship, about aesthetics and style, and kind of talk about what we talk about judgment, talk about those things, and see what kind of responses we get. Like, and I'm going to be careful with it. I'm going to ask you, like, if you go to church, have you felt judged, or do you not go to church because you might feel judged? Right. But then I'm going to ask, have you attended church in the last few years and felt judged? Like, is what you're saying matching up with your actual experience?
Right.
Or are we sort of tying ourselves to the same answers over and over again?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just so used to saying cops are racist. So, I just won't give a cop a chance.
Just,
you know what I mean? It's like,
it's one of those things
once
where
you get that in your mind.
People just used to saying, I feel judged. And it's sometimes I'm like, how did you even feel judged? You just sat in the back and you laughed.
I'll be honest, sometimes I think it's a subconscious part of fitting in. Once a narrative starts, nobody wants to be the outlier and say, nah, I'm fine. Especially if they're not a churchgoer.
Right.
They don't be like, I'm cool. They cool to me. That's like me, like I said, back to the cop example. If I would be the most unpopular dude in the world in a group full of black people talking about, I got some great cops are great people. They're good to me.
We gonna look at you like, get out. Get out.
So you still got to be willing to be an individual. But Mo, I appreciate you sharing your perspective and your wisdom and your thoughts. We'll try not to make such a long break next time between your next appearance. We'll try not to.
We'll see.
That. You're still not the church's event coordinator, by the way. I just want to end with that. Mike, you want to give any last thoughts about the conversation?
Yeah, great conversation, by the way. Mo, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate you. We'll have you back on. We got to space it out, though.
We'll talk about it.
Space it out.
We'll talk about it in May.
But I do feel like the church, they do have to bend some because times have changed, interests have changed. I think churches do have to adjust.
Be specific, and I'll take extra time just to listen to you say, because I hear that a lot, but I'm very big on being specific. What exactly? Like,
okay. If I go to a church and they have no music, I'm turned off.
Okay.
If I go to a church and it's too long, I'm turned off.
Okay.
If I go to a church and the preacher's really not talking about anything, I'm turned off.
So you're saying that's what needs to change?
Yes.
So you said
But
3 things that I think I'm safe on so far.
every
So
pastor
if you hit
can't-
me, I'm
Okay.
gonna shut this podcast
I feel
down.
like I can say this, right? Like every pastor, I don't know if everybody who believes that they were called to pastor actually was
Well,
called.
that's
Look, that's the
another
best
story.
way I can say
Let's
it.
have a whole nother show about that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're right. And my grandma used to say it like this: everybody ain't able. And some
Right.
people wish they could, but they just don't know how.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking for the wrong thing. I don't know.
think you are. I
No.
think
It could just
those,
be me.
the 3 things
But-
you just said about being engaging, not being too long, and what was the first one you said? No music. You know, I get that. Nobody's. Yeah, it's hard to go to church that has absolutely no music. I get it. I would just say that my problem comes, and I know we're going to get into this another show, is when you start talking about the church needs to bend and change with the times. That's where we get back to that sort of commercialism, marketing, gimmicky stuff. That's my
Like,
problem.
it's like to what capacity?
Where you start to get too
I'm not saying
gimmicky, but I'm saying that's what I'm thinking other people mean.
Okay. All right.
They're like, I want an experience. I've literally heard people like, you've got to impress me. And I'm like, I don't think so.
So I know we're wrapping it up, but like my question is, at what point does a church stop bending? Because the times continue to change.
I don't really mean bend though. Just
I know what you mean.
Just kind of adjust.
Pay
what's
attention
going
to
on.
where we're,
right.
but I'll say this about church. Everything about church is essentially man-made in how we've structured our services from the time we started. Literally, everybody used to have an 11 o'clock service. Now all of a sudden, everybody's at 10 o'clock. But everybody's at 11 o'clock service. Everybody has Sunday school at 10. That's made up. There's no scripture that tells us that church is 2 hours, choir sing a song, prayer, scripture, none of that stuff, okay? So anything man-made can be man-changed. And a lot of those things were made up to fit certain schedules and norms and behaviors of the day. So when those things changed, like COVID changed, a lot of people did get shorter. Now, some people didn't. But a lot of people did get shorter, and a lot of people did, do different things. A lot of us shortened up our sermon time and different things like that. Those are, again, very practical things. But I just get into a place where we start doing things that are outside of the core of what the church is. And like you said, you cease to be a church.
Right.
And you become more of like a brand. I have a problem with the church trying to keep up with the world as if it's possible to compete with the world.
Right.
And that if we just did all this flash bang stuff, then everybody would come and be saved. But the truth of the matter is the mega churches that have all that have hurt just as much as the small mom and pop churches in their own ways. The churches, TD Jakes, the big churches, people that I love and know, Bishop Clark, they don't have exactly the exact same masses of people. And I've watched some of the mega churches shrink their sanctuaries, diminish their services. Used to have 4 or 5 services a weekend. Church right here in Ohio used to have 4 or 5 services a weekend. It has 1 service in 1 sanctuary at one time, and it's smaller than it was, 5, 6 years ago. So everybody, and they had the best of everything. We were all trying to be like that church. Times change for everybody, and social and communal and societal realities change for everybody. So that's what I want to get into in another show about what should change. What does that change really look like? And how do we get off of this just vague change with the times to get more specific? What you mentioned I thought was great. I think that what some of the things that we're talking about are more of, back to what I said earlier, bored church folk, or people who are impressed with something somewhere else and try to force it into a box where they are when it might not match. It just doesn't match. LA ministry would not match a Warren ministry.
Right.
And you have to be aware of that. And I say all the time, there's a reason some neighborhoods have Whole Foods and some neighborhoods have dollar stores.
Right.
There's a reason for that, because that's what the market is able to support. And I hate to use that word, but it's true.
Yeah, it is
That's what the
it is.
demographic
Yeah, it is
are
what it
able to
is,
support.
yeah.
And I never walked in, McDonald's and screamed at them for not having tacos.
Right.
Right.
It's like, you ain't got it. If you want tacos, go where the tacos are.
Right.
So I think it's a great discussion. We started late, but we got our 90 minutes in. But I thank y'all for staying on. There is so much more we could say and so much more we will say. But y'all give it up for Mo. Give those emoji hand
I got
claps.
a closing comment.
Give your closing comment. You have the last word.
Saturday, May 4th.
Saturday.
Come see your pastor play basketball.
Come see the pastor play basketball. We go promote it. I don't even know if I'm playing basketball, y'all, but they keep saying I am.
Half court, 7 minutes. We'll see. But no, come
I'm
support
going to just stand at the
it.
3-point line and wait for the ball.
Alumni basketball game. We're raising funds to give away 2 scholarships. That's it.
That's what we're trying to do.
That's what we're doing.
Celebrating Mo and the alumni basketball game Saturday, May 4th, Warren G. Harding High School Gymnasium. It's $10. Doors open at 5. Game starts around 6.
Yeah.
We can't wait to have a great time.
Yes.
Y'all take care. Follow us, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Audio formats will be on soon. Our latest episodes will be uploaded. We love y'all. See you next week at 8:21 sharp.
8:22.
Peace out.